You're awesome, thank you, and hard to follow. So I plan to tell a little story about my life, and it starts in 1990, and some of you probably weren't even alive then. Probably a lot of you couldn't vote, but I'm really old, and so I actually could vote. And I was 20 years old, and I left my lefty liberal arts college and had to go home to my mother's house in southern Missouri. And she lived in a town called Climax Springs. Which was not as exciting as the name sounded, because there was only one thing in the town, and that was a video store that also served pizza. And there wasn't anything else there. So it was a place that you passed through, and a place where most people wore cans of Budweiser on strings around their necks, you know, because it was near the lake, and you need to have that when you're on the boat. So I went down there with my guitar, my duffel bag full of cut-off jeans and rugby t-shirts, and my girlfriend's address and phone number, because there was no internet and no email and nothing but the old school way to communicate with people. And I had no intention of telling my mother that I was a lesbian, because I didn't know if it would go badly, and I didn't want to be trapped all summer with her down there. So I was going to keep it a secret. And then about a week into my stay there, it came up somehow, probably because I should have shaved my legs. And she asked me, "Are you gay?" And I sat there and stared, and must have waited long enough for her to draw her own conclusions, and she freaked out. She lost it. She jumped up, she was screaming, she was pacing, she called me a pervert, a dyke, and she told me I was going to hell, which was interesting because she'd nearly never been to church, had never read the Bible, was not a religious woman, but my God, people love to use that when they're frightened. And then she told me that at the end of the summer, that when I left at the end of the summer, I would be dead to her. So she was going to disown me. And I said, well, maybe I should, you know, go back to Kansas City for the summer. That might be better since this isn't going so well. And she leaned in really close. She said, "No, we are going to suffer." It was so fun, and I was so excited. It was like the beginning of your worst what I did on my summer vacation essay ever. And so we didn't speak. So she didn't speak to me. We stopped talking, and we just kind of coexisted. And that's just kind of how it was. And my only connection really was to my girlfriend who was in Vermont. And so every night I would sneak out of my house, out of my mom's house, into the garage, and sit by my stepfather's workbench because there was a landline there. And I would talk to my girlfriend on the phone for like an hour, collect, all summer long, collect. And thank God her dad paid for that. And then I got a job in a grocery store as a stock boy. And yeah, they called me stock boy. And it was in the town over, and obviously I was a little different than most of the people working in the grocery store. And so I didn't have a lot of friends there, or anyone like me, but I would go to work, it would give me something to do, and then sometimes I would use the payphone in the parking lot to call my girlfriend. and then I would go home at night to my mom's house where nobody was really talking. And two things happened that summer that kind of had a huge impact on not only my ability to get through that, but also the way I am in the world today. And the first one was that one day when I was in the grocery store doing my little stocking job, canned goods, whatever, dog food, I saw these two young women come in, super cute, and a little cuddly. They seemed cuddly. And I thought, could it be that here in southern Missouri? So I did what any normal person would do, and I hid in the milk, what is that, the dairy case. I hid in the dairy case so that I could watch these young women in the grocery store. And so fortunately for me, the dairy case faced the produce aisle, and I could watch as they selected their vegetables. And then they kissed in front of the broccoli and in front of me in the dairy case. And I got so excited, I dropped a gallon of milk on the floor, and then, you know. But seeing them do that in the grocery store was like an incredible lifeline for me because I was so profoundly alone. And so, of course, I couldn't just not follow them the rest of the way. So I followed them through the store, and I managed to be the person that bagged their groceries, and then I managed to be the person that carried them to their car. And as I watched their Jeep go, yes, they had a Jeep, into a tiny speck in the distance, it actually made me feel like I was going to be okay, because there were other people like me, and I was going to find them, and my life was going to be bigger than what it was right then. So that was incredible, and reminded me of how important visibility is, and still is. And then the other thing that happened is, because I had a lot of time to think, and you can't spend all your time, you know, writing folk music and listening to Sean Colvin, I thought a lot about my mom, and I thought about who she was in the world. She spent her whole life in Kansas. She never traveled. She had a high school education. She never had the opportunity to go to college. She was a working class woman, a hard worker, and I realized that it must be really hard for her to understand what it would be like to be me. And so the next time that she said something besides pass the salt, she told me that she was ranting about, you know, more of the disowning. I mean, it was tiresome. And finally, I just turned to her and I said, you know, I know this must be really hard for you. And it completely stopped her in her tracks. And she just kind of looked at me as if it was a trick. And she said, it is. And I said, I know that. And I'm not going to give up on you. So it was an exercise in compassion. And now, after all these years and everything, my mother and I reconciled. We ended up having a good relationship. She was involved in my life. She was present at my commitment ceremony. She was there for the birth of my children. And it reminds me constantly when I think of that, not of how awful it was, because I can find humor in that now, but in the power of compassion and the power of what can happen when you know someone and you let them see who you truly are. And so those are the two things that kind of guide how I am in the world now. I'm constantly visible. It's why I write, to tell my story. It's why I'm present online, is so that other people can know me. Because I also believe that in knowing me, people can have compassion for the things that they don't understand, and then that we can change the world one person at a time.